I've invited my estranged mother to share in my special day, but now I'm starting to regret it. Some backstory first. For the first 14 years of my life, my parents were happily married, or rather I thought that they were. Mom worked as an insurance broker and Dad worked as a real estate agent. I never saw any sign that their marriage was in trouble. They were always smiling and laughing with each other, and they always showed up to any events at school together. They both took very good care of me. Then one day I came home from soccer practice and I could hear the arguing from the road. I got inside and saw my dad standing over my mother, screaming at her. While Mom sat on the couch crying, I asked him what was happening, but my dad just stormed out of the home, and my mom refused to speak. I later found out that Mom had cheated on Dad with one of her colleagues at the office, and Dad was extremely upset about it. He would not come home until late after work, and he insisted that we leave early when it was time for me to go to school. On the car rides, he reminded me over and over that none of it was my fault. He just could not bear to look at my mom in the face anymore, and I was old enough to understand that what my mom did was horrible, and I could not blame him for growing distant. I think they tried going to couples therapy, but in the end, Dad's trust was completely broken, and there was no coming back, no fixing things, no making amends. It just did not work out for them, and they filed for divorce. During their divorce, the matter of custody came up, and since I was old enough to decide who I wanted to live with, my dad told me that he'd be fine with whatever decision I've made. But my mother fought tooth and nail to convince me to stay with her, to the point where it was getting insufferable. She started love-bombing me with gifts and borderline smothering me. She would constantly want to talk to me about how things were going with school and soccer, and the problem was that none of it felt genuine. It's not that she and I never used to talk, but it was never to that extent, and suddenly the things she was adamant about me not using, like nail polish, were okay. I was staying with her in the interim until it came to decide which parent I wanted to live with. My dad had moved out to an apartment of his own, and I only saw him on the weekends. But those weekends were a reprieve. We ordered in or cooked together and rented a movie to watch. In the end, when I had to decide, I chose to live with my dad, not only because of how my mom was acting, but because he lived closer to my school and to the university I wanted to go in. So he'd have full custody, and I'd seen my mother on weekends. At the time, I did not know that there was money involved, but in their divorce settlement, they decided that whoever did not get custody would have to pay child support. So my mom would have to give money to my dad every month to take care of me. Also, my mom's job was in jeopardy because she was being investigated by the human resources at her office for her workplace affair. So, she was going to be out of a job soon. Oops. Anyways, I moved in with my dad and things were going great for a while. Though I could tell my mom was bitter. She started dating a lot after she got let go of her job, and some of the guys she brought around were weird. They would comment on my body a lot, in a way that made me uncomfortable. When I brought this up with my mom, she would make excuses and say that they were just joking. I didn't like it. I told my dad I did not want to go over there anymore, and I told him why. He and Mom had a long talk about it, and she accused him of manipulating me or whatever. Me and my mom did not talk much after that, at least until I got to college. She got engaged and wanted me to come to the wedding, but it was during the time when I had exams. She and her new husband came to my graduation, but I did not vibe with him. He seemed like he wanted to be anywhere but there. Since then, I've had a little contact with my mom. Fast forward to now, and I myself am engaged to be married, and my wedding will be in a few months, so I've been finalizing all the plans. I met my fiance when I was out at a bar with my friends. He was cute, charming, and we had a lot in common. He proposed last year when we were on a couples trip to meet his family in Germany. Since then, he's been meeting more and more of my family, but up until last week, he had not met my mom. To be honest, my mom has not been involved in my wedding plans at all. I just planned on sending her an invitation in the mail. Matt had yet to meet her, which I agreed was a little unfair, even though he knew we did not have the best relationship. I'd met all of his family, and he and my dad are golf buddies now. So we sat down one night and, well, they tabled the idea of inviting my mom to the wedding shower. Matt seemed to think it was a good idea, but my dad was skeptical. He probably just did not want to be around her, but I promised to seat them very far away from each other. I did not feel like calling my mom, though, so I just sent her an email with the directions. After that, we texted back and forth, and she confirmed that she'd be there. She asked if I needed help with anything, and I told her just to show up and bring a gift if it was within her means. My in-laws were hosting the shower at a local botanical garden, and Dad had paid for the catering, so everything was taken care of. The day before, everything was going smoothly, and the caterers had shown up on time, and everybody was enjoying the food and the music, and the weather was nice out. After an hour, I noticed my mom still had not arrived, and Matt was asking me if she was still coming. I texted her after the party started, and she said that she was coming, so I've done my due diligence. Whether she came or not did not matter to me. At that point, I was trying to have a good time and enjoy my day. Well, a few minutes later, my mom and her husband showed up. One of my in-laws went to grab her gift and set it on the table with others, and she was very rude to them. She was also upset that she could not sit at my table and yelled at the people who were showing her to her assigned seat. I had to stop eating my food, get up, and tell her to calm down and stop ruining my event and harassing the organizers. She seemed taken aback by what I said, and she argued that she had not met my fiance and just simply wanted to meet him. I didn't care. She doesn't get to show up at my event and start making a fuss. I told her nobody was sitting with me and my fiance because we were about to open gifts. If she had shown up on time, she would have been there when we were making rounds and thanking everybody for coming. Anyways, things carried on like normal. We opened up the gifts and got a lot of cool stuff from a lot of cool people. By the time I finally got around to making, Matt to my mom's table, she had drunk entirely too much wine and was slurring her words and being inappropriate. She was touching Matt's face, getting way too close to him and telling him how handsome he was, even though he was clearly uncomfortable. Even her husband was telling her to chill. If that wasn't enough, she got even more drunk, fell over on the dance floor, and threw up on one of the tables. If I had known it was going to be like that, I would have never invited her at all. Thank God the venue was a cleaning fee lumped into the rental. By the time she left, I was incandescent with rage. My dad had to come over and calm me down. He said to everyone, they seemed to have a good time despite my mother's antics. So, that was all that mattered. I apologized to the organizers and to Matt's family, and they had asked Matt why my mom was not more involved in the wedding planning, and he told them that we did not have a great relationship together. Now they understand why. At this point, I'd rather not have my mom at the wedding at all. Matt told me maybe this behavior was just a one-off thing, and maybe she was just having a bad day. I don't know if she behaves like this on my wedding day. I'm going to have a fit. Also, a lot of Matt's family is uncomfortable with her now because of how embarrassing she is. They're very reserved people, and she was there making a spectacle out of herself. Should I uninvite her, or should I treat this as an isolated incident and give her a little warning? Top comment from the first post. First of all, yikes. How and why is your mom behaving like that at her age? To be honest, she sounds like a Karen, and her actively putting you in danger as a teenager by bringing a bunch of strange men around you is gross. Then she had the audacity to laugh it off. Did she not know how many men out there prey on young girls? Let's be sensible. If I were you, I would not invite her to the wedding. Not even because of the drunkenness. Everyone gets a little tipsy and embarrasses themselves sometimes. You should uninvite her for being rude to your in-laws and hitting on your fiance, which is way over the line. Those people are going to be your family in the near future. And she left a really bad impression on them. The fact that even her husband was telling her to chill out says a lot, to be honest. Even he was embarrassed. Comment number 2. Don't uninvite her. You said it yourself that you guys don't have much of a relationship. You went low contact with her, which probably felt like it came out of nowhere for her. So she's probably feeling, left out, finding out that you're getting married. Of course she's going to feel some way after not being involved in any of the wedding plannings. I think you're just not being fair at all to her. Did she even know that your in-laws were in charge of the shower? Did she know how the seating or anything else worked? Of course not, because she was not involved, because you decided to ghost her. If I were her, I would have acted out and ruined the party too. I'm tired of people thinking they can just treat their relatives like crap and suffer no consequences in return. Update number 1. Hey guys, so it's been a month, which means my wedding is in 2 months. We're really getting down to the wire, and before I get to the nitty-gritty of this update, I want to clear something up. I did not go low contact with my mom for no reason. I became distant around the time of the divorce, which was hard on both my parents and me, but even more so after the custody dispute. My mother was showering me with gifts and love and hoped that I would pick her, and it felt as though she did not want custody of me because she loved me, but because she did not want to pay child support. I never really got over that, and so I've been distant with her ever since. And with that out of the way, I'm here to tell you all that I'm even less inclined to have her at my wedding, and here is why. The day after my first post, I get a text from my mom, asking if we could talk, so I called her up. She profusely apologized for how she behaved at the wedding shower. She wanted to make it up to me and asked if she could be involved with the wedding planning in any way possible. I told her everything was pretty much set at that point. We're 3 months out and all the vendors are ready to go, and she asked if we were having a rehearsal dinner. I said no. There was nothing to rehearse. It was a pretty straightforward wedding. She asked about my bachelorette party I was having 1 week before the wedding, and she was absolutely not invited. Just to shut her up, I told her that she could come to my final dress fitting. It was a harmless activity that would be extremely hard for her to screw up. I gave her the name of the venue and reminded her not to be late because we were not going to wait for her. She said that she'd be there on time. The fitting was the day before yesterday, and it was the worst one by far. I went there with Matt's mother and sister, and my mom was already there when we arrived. Great. We sat down in a private room, and the shop owner brings out the tailored dress. The reason I waited so long to get mine was that I did not want to be one of those brides who gain or lose weight and can't fit into their dress properly. I go into the back and put it on, and it's perfect. It's everything I've ever wanted. When I step into the room, Matt's mom and sister ooh and ah and tell me how beautiful I look. Well, my mom kind of wrinkles her nose. She asked me why I did not get a white dress. It's because I hate the way white dresses are photographed. It's like a flashbang in the middle of the picture. Then she comes over and starts critiquing every little detail on the dress. Too much of your cleavage exposed. I don't like the shape of the trail. The trim on the veil's ugly. The color makes you look old. It's a champagne color. Matt's sister could tell I was visibly getting upset because this was my dream dress, and my mom was just picking it apart. So she asked my mom if there was anything that she would like about the dress at all, and my mom told her to mind her own business because she was just trying to help her daughter. Well, I told her she'd help enough if she would just leave. The fitting was over. Then I went back into the changing room to cry. I can understand her not liking the dress, but calling it ugly and saying it makes me look old was too far. The shop owner came to ask me if I was okay, and I told her to get Matt's sister. I apologized for the way my mom was acting, and she told me not to worry about it. It was my wedding, and the only person who needed to be happy with the dress was me. We got the dress packed up so we could take it to get cleaned and pressed, and when we were leaving the venue, well, my mom tried to talk to me one last time, but I told her I've heard enough, and I got into the car with Matt's sister and mom, and we went to the cleaners. Well, the whole time, she was blowing up my phone with deranged text after deranged text, and I couldn't take it. She asked me if I loved my new family more than her, or if they manipulated me into hating my own mother. She railed about how I chose my dad over her because I wanted to be a wild child, and how I stopped coming over to her place because I wanted to get away with staying out late with the problem kids and smoking on some weed. Wow, I ended up blocking her. At this point, she won't be getting an invitation in the mail because I am done. Update number 2. It's been a while. And well, I have a wild update for you guys. So, my mom is officially uninvited from my wedding. I struck her off the guest list and I will not be sending invitations in the mail to her. She knows the ceremony and reception are invitation only, so hopefully she takes the hint. Well, guess what happened yesterday? She showed up at Matt's job and I don't know how she found out where he works. Maybe she looked him up on social media. He does have a LinkedIn account, so that could be it. Anyways, Matt gets called down to the foyer and the secretary tells him his mother-in-law is there to see him. That's when Matt called me and asked me why my mom was at his job. I didn't even know what to say. This was some extremely creepy behavior. He went down to the foyer and saw her in the front desk, and she ran up and tried hugging him, but he pretended to answer his phone to avoid her. He was still uncomfortable after she basically felt him up at the bridal shower and after his sister told him what happened at my dress fitting. She said she was there to take him to lunch, and he said that he had a string of meetings so he could not leave the office, and she told him she was there because she really needed to talk to him about me. He took her to a more private section of the foyer and got this. He motioned for her to sit and then sat opposite of her, but she got up and sat next to him. Like right next to him. I'm talking shoulder to knee. She was flush against him. Mind you, they've met once. If that was not enough, as she was talking to him, she was touching him a lot on his thighs and his arms. And for all the people who are going to tell me this is not creepy, imagine that this was my father-in-law doing this to me. There would be riots. My mother told Matt that he should not marry me because I was actually, secretly, a psychopath. And I'd turn on him and ruin his and his family's lives. She said I was the reason my parents got divorced, and I was trying to get back at her for not letting me stay out late. So, when she and my dad got divorced, I chose Dad. So she would have child support support even though she was out of a job. Matt already knows the real story of how and why my parents got divorced, so she wasn't fooling anyone. He made an excuse and went back upstairs to his office, and he called me and told me everything, saying he understood why I distanced myself from her. She has serious issues. After hearing all this, I was livid. I unblocked her long enough to show her how much of a psychopath I am. I told her never to come near my family again. We're done. I never want to see her again, and Matt shouted from the background, and don't show up at my job like that again. It's weird and creepy. Before she could respond, I blocked her. When I told my dad about all this, he said to just ignore my mom and that she'd get her comeuppance soon. Whatever that meant, I'm putting all this behind me and focusing on my wedding now. Update number 3. Sorry it's taken so long to provide another update, guys. Matt and I are official. Married. We just got back from our honeymoon in Europe. We managed to make a stop by Germany to see his extended family who could not make it to the wedding. It was great. Now, about the wedding, right? It wasn't all sunshine and roses, because Mom showed up, of course. She even dragged her husband along, and she got stopped at the door because, like I said, invitation only. She was not on the guest list and did not have an invitation, and the only reason I knew she was there was because one of Matt's groomsmen came up to the room and told me. I told them, if she refuses to leave, just call the police and have them take her away. I didn't have the energy to deal with her. She was arguing with the people who were telling her she could not come in, saying she was the mother of the bride and had every right to be there. Her name not being on the guest list must have been a mistake. Matt's groomsmen went down there and told her if she did not leave, they would call the police and have her escorted away. Well, that seemed to scare her off a bit, and she left soon after, but that's not where this update ends. Oh no. After the ceremony, she followed us to where we were, taking pictures and tried to insert herself into the activities. It was so embarrassing. It took 5 people arguing back and forth to get her to go away. Everyone who helped got a bottle of wine to take home because I know that must have been annoying to deal with. I was not going to let her ruin my big day, and I'm so glad Matt's family was ready and willing to deal with her. Thankfully, the reception was drama-free and everyone had a good time, And by the end of the day, my mom was an afterthought, and Dad thought her antics were kind and entertaining. It's a bit deranged, and he said he had a lot to tell me about what my mom's been up to when I returned from my honeymoon. He didn't spill too much, but he gave me a little preview of what I should expect. Let's just say that Mom has not let go of her cheating ways. Update number 4. This is probably going to be the last update on this topic. My dad and I had lunch last week, and what he showed me made my jaw drop. So, my dad still works in real estate, and he still has a lot of his old connections from back then. Over the last few years, he's been getting a lot of, quote, "isn't that your wife?" texts from people he knows. My dad was never open about his divorce, so a lot of his colleagues don't even know about it. Also, we live in a pretty small town, so everybody kind of knows everybody. But in those texts, they were included screenshots of Mom flirting with guys and arranging to have, well, coitus with them. He sent them all to me and told me to do whatever I wanted with them, so after our lunch, I went over to the local Xerox machine and printed out all the screenshots, stuffed them in an envelope, labeled them with my mom's husband's name, and paid someone to drop them off at the front desk in the office he works at. She said I was a psycho and ruined lives, so I will be a psycho and ruin lives. About 3 days later, I get a call from one of my cousins telling me that my mom was now staying over at their house in their spare room because her husband kicked her out. She said my mom had not told them why, and she's just been sulking around the house the whole time. So, I told her, given my mom's history, I think we could guess. She also told me that my mom did not have a lot of stuff, which was part of the reason she was reaching out, though she would not blame me if I said no. Mom's husband took everything that he'd bought for her and packed it up to sell or give away, which was the majority of her stuff. Also, my mom was an unemployed housewife, so she was also looking for work. I was not ready or willing to help her, not just because of what she did, but because things were crazy at work, and I did not need the added stress of my mother feeling entitled to my time and attention. She made her bed, now she can go to sleep. Top comments from the final post. Comment number 1. After the first post, I was going to suggest that maybe your mom has the hots for your boyfriend, but I did not want to be the guy who psychoanalyzes people's lives. It stinks that my hunch was right. It seems like your mom is one of those people who likes being the center of attention. It almost seemed like she was trying to get back at you for not involving her more in the wedding plans. It was super gross how she was behaving with your husband, though. She's an old enough to be his mom. Have some decency. Also, how long has your dad been dealing with people texting him about his wife wanting to, well, do stuff with him? That must have been incredibly awkward for him, and how embarrassing for her. Like, you're old, go enjoy your retirement, or whatever. Why is she still out here trying to hook up with random guys like she's 20 or 30? Ew! Comment number 2. This is not the dunk that you think it is, because you basically just proved your mom's right. You are a psychopath, because the only people who delight in ruining other people's lives are psychopaths. Yeah, I understand how women get emotional about their big day, but I think you took this a little too far, no? And why would you not let your mother help when you were the one who got her kicked out of her own home? Especially when you were the one who put her in this position. You could have sent her some money anonymously, since you were the one who yourself admitted that she doesn't have anything. I think your dad is just as bad too. I could understand him being embarrassed, but he could just confront your mom about the text instead of using you to do his bidding. Disgusting behavior all around. Well. OP's mother gets even more karma towards the end of the story when her husband kicked her out. And we can only assume that she's been cheating again. Guys, this was a long, dramatic story, and I just want to ask you one question. If you were in OP's position, what the heck would you have done? Drop your comments down below. This was a wild one. I'm glad that you guys joined me on today's story. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every single day. If you want to be a part of these drama stories, in-laws, Karen disputes, inheritance dramas, you name it, go ahead. Drop a like, drop a subscribe. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Remember though, it's cool to be kind. See ya.